Hello and welcome to the Idaho Reports podcast. I'm Logan Finney. There were many localized issues on the ballot this week, including one question in Idaho County about the future of the Mountain View School District, the geographically largest school district in the state of Idaho. Joining me to discuss the Mountain View School District results is Alyssa Holthouse, who is the interim superintendent at that school district. Alyssa, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So, for folks who don't spend a lot of time in central Idaho, can you describe the Mountain View School District for us and kind of the area of the state you guys cover?
Absolutely. It is the largest land mass district in the state of Idaho. We are most of, not all of, but most of Idaho County. We literally touch the Oregon border and the Montana border. A majority of our property is federally owned forest land, and so much of our district is very, very sparsely populated. We do have the county seat of Idaho County, which is Grangeville. The school district is made up of 5 schools. In Grangeville, we have Grangeville Elementary Middle School, which is a K-8 school, largest school in the district. And then we have Grangeville High School, which is a 9-12. And then in Kuski, Idaho, we have Clearwater Valley Elementary, which is a K-6 school, and then Clearwater Junior Senior High School, which is a 7-12 school. And then up at Elk City, Idaho, way out there, the most beautiful drive you could ever imagine, and in the community of Elk City is our little Elk City Elementary School.
And so, this question that was placed on the ballot was a deconsolidation. So, the goal here is to divide the school district into what was the impetus among the community for splitting up the district? I mean, I can guess it's pretty large geographically and kind of unwieldy to administer, but what were those local conversations like?
So, a quote from Thomas Jefferson was used regularly, and the quote is, "A government closest to the people serves the people best." And so, while in a very populated district, one trustee could represent a lot of people, far more than we have in our entire district. It's really people who are within a few blocks or a few miles. And so that trustee has a very good understanding of representing their area. In our district, because we are so geographically diverse, one trustee may cover an area of many, many, many square miles. And so not neighbors, not people who they know well or even could run into in a post office or a business or whatever, many miles. And so it was often felt that the trustees didn't really represent their zones, even though they tried to the best of their abilities. And so for many, many years, I worked in the district prior to being superintendent here 15 years ago as an elementary school principal, first in Clearwater Valley and then in Grangeville. And even then, there was conversations about the district separating. And the conversations were just like, they don't represent us. And levies that have had very the results are very mixed and the communities are very different, and what the communities want in their schools is very different. And so that conversation's been around for a long time. In 2006, Riggins broke away from the school district. It was the last deconsolidation in Idaho, still the same district. And at that time, there was some talk about dividing into 3, but Idaho code precludes that from happening. And um, and so many years later, from 2006, the deconsolidation process began here in the district, and the vote was last night.
So voters approved that deconsolidation question on the ballot. What do the next steps look like for you? I mean, you're a superintendent of a school district that's no longer going to exist nominally.
Correct. Well, okay, let me back up just a minute. A deconsolidation is really a two-pronged decision. It has to be a simple majority of the entire district and then a simple majority of the smaller of the 2 new proposed districts. And so it's not an easy decision, but B, it's not an easy hurdle to get across. So that decision was made last night. It did pass in both of those areas. And now the next thing is to find trustees to represent each of the new proposed zones. So 2 new districts, each district has 5 trustee zones, and they'll need to find people that will be willing to apply And then in July, the State Board of Education will have a special meeting where they will appoint a trustee for both of those, for each of those zones. And then we will have a 10-person board. Those 10, and for the next year, for the 25-26 school year, we continue to be Mountain View School District. And those 10 people will vote anytime it's about something that will impact Mountain View School District. If they're making plans for the future or the next year, the 5 trustees that represent Clearwater Valley will vote when it's a decision about Clearwater Valley's future. And then the 5 trustees from Grangeville will vote when it's a decision about Grangeville's future. So right now, the number one priority is finding people who are supporters of education and are interested in serving as trustees in each of those 10 new trustee zones.
Wow, that's a fascinating process. Thanks for explaining that.
It is fascinating. There's just going to be some monumental decisions in this district in the next year.
One of the interesting factors that stood out to me in Idaho Ed News has had some good coverage of kind of the discussion up there. And it seemed like some of the folks out in Elk City, kind of the more remote part of the district, they seemed nervous about which of these 2 new districts they were going to be grouped in with. Are you able to speak to that at all?
A little bit. I want to be careful that I want to respect them and their opinions. So I don't mean in any way to speak for them. And by the way, we had a public hearing there last week that I left there with chills because probably the best public hearing. People came with such good questions, and they were so respectful and courteous in their questions and the answers when they received them. If they liked them, that was great, and if they didn't like them, they were still respectful. So it was just awesome. Elk City is very concerned about keeping a school. They're a small community. They recognize that a school is the heart of the community, and they're concerned that it will be closed for financial reasons in the future. They felt like they had a better chance of remaining open with the larger of the 2 new districts, which would be Grangeville, than if they went with the smaller of the 2 districts, which is Clearwater Valley.
And you referenced it a little bit earlier in our conversation, but a lot of the land in Idaho County is federally managed, federally owned land. That means it's not able to be charged for property taxes. What sort of issues does that cause for a school district like yours?
Property taxes is how many schools function, anything beyond the allocations from the state. And we can't property tax federal land. The state and the federal government have recognized that timber sales would come, a portion of that would come back to the schools to help offset those lost tax dollars, property tax dollars. But however, we're not logging the same number of timber, the same amount of timber as we have in the past. So those dollars declined. And then we had from the federal government, Secure Rural Schools, which replaced those dollars and offset the loss of property taxes for those federal lands. Unfortunately, and this is a whole nother topic you've probably been reporting about, Secure Rural Schools funds were not reissued at the federal level. They're not dead yet, but it's a little scary, and that's a big allocation for this district and this area. Our highway district gets a lot of Secure Rural Schools money as well.
Very interesting. Thank you. So you're serving in this capacity as an interim superintendent for the district. You referenced you worked in the district in a previous position. Can you give me just a little bit more background on your time working for the school district up there? And then can you also talk to me about the difficulty in finding a superintendent to serve for the district, both because of the rural aspects, but also the uncertainty about what this deconsolidation was going to look like?
Yes. So a little bit about myself. I was a career teacher. I spent nearly 20 years in the classroom in Kimberly, Idaho, outside Twin Falls, Payette, Idaho, and then Cottonwood, Idaho. And then I left the classroom and became a building principal first in the Mountain View School District at Clearwater Valley Elementary, and then in the Mountain View School District at Grangeville Elementary Middle School. And then midlife crisis happened, and my husband and I moved to Missouri for a few years and then realized we needed to get back to Idaho. When I returned to Idaho, I was the superintendent at St. Mary's School District for 6 years. And then I retired, and retirement's pretty awesome. And I was living in Lewiston, and about a year ago was hearing that Mountain View was struggling finding a superintendent for the district. And my heart is here. You can't work in a school district and not leave a great big piece of your heart in that district. And so I just had to say, okay, pick me. I'll come help you out for a year. It's difficult finding administrators. It's difficult finding teachers. It's difficult finding paras. It's a hard job. We work with kids, and our heart is in this job, and so it's a difficult job to have, and so it's hard to recruit. There aren't a lot of applications for every position, and unfortunately, Mountain View has is recovering from a couple of failed levies, and then the looming deconsolidation, and so that, in my opinion, decreases their chance at getting applicants for the superintendent position. Because we are in this transition, you do need an experienced superintendent because there's a lot of new stuff coming at you every day. And so it'd be difficult for a rookie to take the position currently.
Yeah, that was one of my questions for you too, is how much of this was a typical superintendent job versus how much of it was preparing and managing and getting ready for this deconsolidation question?
So it was very much 100% the typical superintendent job. And then on top of it, the deconsolidation. A friend of mine called me this morning and he was congratulating me, which I told him, I don't know, there's congratulations because I could see the pros and the cons for the deconsolidation. But he said, no, what I'm congratulating you about is very, very few superintendents in Idaho have a deconsolidation under their belt. And so it was a big job. There's a lot to it, but it was also kind of fascinating and exciting to make some of those decisions and try to figure out how to do it. And one thing that I'm incredibly proud of is the last time this district deconsolidated, they spent a huge chunk of money paying an outside entity to come in and direct that deconsolidation. We did not do that this time. We had a few maps drawn by the county and had very, very minimal expenses this time.
Very cool. How long are you in the job now, and what's the superintendent hunt going to look like for the new Grangeville and Clearwater Valley districts?
My current contract runs through June 30th, and the Mountain View Board of Trustees are meeting on May 28th, so this next week, and they will hire a new superintendent at that time.
Okay, well then back to retirement for you, I imagine.
That might be the plan.
Well, thank you for making time to talk with us, Alyssa. Is there anything else about this topic or about your neck of the woods in Idaho that you think is important for our audience to know about?
I think it's important for people to know that while Mountain View has had some struggles and now we're going through the deconsolidation, there are amazing people here and fabulous teachers here. And this is just a really, really good place to live and learn and work.
Fabulous. Alyssa Holthouse, the interim superintendent at the deconsolidating Mountain View School District. Thank you so much for making time to speak with us.
Thank you.
Union Pacific Railroad, serving Idaho for more than 160 years. A proud partner of Idaho Public Television. Presentation of Idaho Reports on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore and Bettis family legacy of building the great state of Idaho, by the Friends of Idaho Public Television, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.